The sound of her laughter cut through Min-Seo like a blade he never saw coming. He wasn't prepared for it. He didn't even know he was capable of reacting this strongly to anything, let alone to her. Hana, the quiet black girl who worked 3 floors below him in the organization's accounting wing, the girl who barely spoke unless spoken to, the girl who kept her head down and avoided unnecessary attention, was laughing. Not smiling politely. Not forcing a soft chuckle. Laughing. Openly. Warmly. Freely. And at another man. It happened right outside the building as Min-Seo stepped out with 2 of his most trusted men. A stranger, tall, broad-shouldered, sharply dressed, stood close to Hana, leaning in as he talked to her. And Hana, dressed in her oversized hoodie and jeans, her curls tucked into a messy bun, actually looked comfortable, relaxed, like she didn't mind his presence at all. Her laugh slipped into the air again, soft but genuine. Min-Seo froze mid-step. His men kept walking a few paces before realizing their boss was no longer beside them. One of them glanced back, confused. "Boss." But Min-Seo didn't answer. His eyes were locked on Hana. Locked on the sight of her lips curved upward. Locked on the way her eyes lit up when the stranger gestured animatedly. Locked on the fact that she seemed happy, and not because of him. A feeling surged through Min-Seo's chest, hot and unwelcome. He didn't recognize it at first. Then he did. Jealousy. Sharp. Irrational. Immediate. It made no sense. Hana never flirted with anyone. She spoke when necessary, kept to herself, finished her work early, avoided drama, avoided attention. She moved like someone trying not to disturb the air. Yet here she was laughing, with someone that wasn't him. The stranger leaned a little too close. Hana tucked a curl behind her ear awkwardly but didn't step away. The jealousy in Min-Seo's chest twisted into something darker. A quiet, simmering anger. The sound of her laughter hit him again, and something inside him snapped. "Boss?" one of his men asked. Min-Seo didn't respond. He walked straight toward them, his stride controlled, expression unreadable, but his eyes burning with something uncharacteristically raw. Hana noticed him first. Her laughter died instantly, fading from her face as quickly as it had come. She straightened, startled, her phone lowering unconsciously as if she'd been caught doing something wrong. The stranger followed her gaze and turned, unaware of the tension slicing the air. "Oh," he said. "You're, Min-Seo, right? I've heard." "We're leaving," Min-Seo said, cold and sharp. His men exchanged glances. Hana blinked. The stranger's eyebrows lifted. Hana hesitated. "I was just waiting for my ride." Min-Seo didn't look at her. He didn't need to. He simply opened the car door and stood there, expecting her to move. His silence was an order. The stranger shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't mean to interrupt anything." "You didn't," Min-Seo replied, voice like ice. "We're leaving." The man frowned slightly. "Well, Hana, maybe I'll see you around," he offered. Hana swallowed. "Maybe," she murmured, though she sounded unsure. That uncertainty eased something tight inside Min-Seo's chest, but only a little. Hana slipped into the car without another word. Because no matter how confused she looked, no matter how awkward she felt, she knew one thing. No one ignored the Mafia boss. Min-Seo followed her into the car. His men got in. The door shut. Silence filled the space instantly. Hana stared at her hands. She could feel the heat of Min-Seo's anger beside her like a living thing. He didn't look at her. Not once. But the tension radiating off him was suffocating. She finally whispered, "I didn't do anything wrong." He ignored her. She tried again. He just needed directions. His jaw tightened so sharply she saw the muscle jump. She frowned. "Why are you upset?" "I'm not," he replied, voice clipped and brittle. It was the most obvious lie she'd ever heard. But she didn't push. She never pushed. She wasn't like the other girls who tried to flirt with him, who played games for attention. She simply grew quiet again, retreating into herself. And that, ironically, made the jealousy burn even hotter. The rest of the ride was suffocatingly silent. By the time they reached their separate destinations, Min-Seo back to headquarters for a meeting, Hana to the side entrance to wait for her actual ride, nothing had been resolved. Nothing had been explained. And Hana still had no idea why the Mafia boss had reacted so violently to her laughing with a stranger. But later that night, she would. Because hours after leaving the building, Hana found herself running for her life. The attack came out of nowhere. She had stopped at a convenience store on her way home, earbuds in, humming softly as she walked down a side street. It was well lit, usually safe, but tonight something felt off. She noticed the first shadow too late. A hand grabbed her backpack and jerked her backward. Hana screamed, stumbling as a masked man shoved her toward the alley wall. "Don't make this difficult," he snarled. Her chest tightened with panic. What do you want?" "I don't have anyth." His fist slammed into the wall beside her face. "It's not about money. Someone paid for a message." Before she could ask what message, he pulled a gun from his jacket. Hana's blood ran cold. She darted to the side on instinct, the first shot missing her head by inches. She screamed again, sprinting toward the end of the alley as bullets ripped through the air behind her. One grazed her arm, stinging sharply. She dove behind a parked car, gasping, heart racing so violently she thought it might burst. The shooter cursed. "Stop running." A second shot ripped through the car door, the metal clanging. Tears blurred her vision. Her hands trembled violently. And then, because fear does strange things to the mind, she whispered the only name she thought might save her. "Min-Seo, please." She didn't know if he could hear her. She didn't know if he cared. She didn't know if calling him made any sense. But he did hear her. Her phone, forgotten in her pocket, had dialed the last number she'd called earlier by mistake, his. And the moment the line picked up, he heard everything. Her scream. The gunshots. Her panicked breathing. "Where are you?" Min-Seo demanded into the phone. But she didn't answer. She was too terrified. Too busy staying alive. "Find her," he barked at his men, already sprinting to his car. Now. It took him 8 minutes. 8 minutes of pure rage. 8 minutes of imagining Hana shot on the ground. 8 minutes of a feeling he refused to name pounding in his chest, choking him. His car turned into the alley just as the shooter aimed again. The black sedan screeched to a halt. The door swung open. Min-Seo stepped out with his gun already raised. One controlled breath. One clean shot. The masked man dropped instantly. Silence followed, heavy, suffocating, electric. Min-Seo lowered his gun and turned toward the car Hana hid behind. "Hana," he called, voice rougher than he intended. A shaky breath answered him. Then she peeked up, eyes wide and glassy with fear. The moment he saw her alive, something inside him nearly buckled. She stood, trembling, clutching her arm. "Min-Seo." But she didn't get another word out before he crossed the distance and grabbed her shoulders, scanning her frantically for injuries. "Where are you hurt?" he demanded. I'm okay," she lied. He touched her arm and she winced. "You're bleeding. It's just a scratch." "Hana." He met her eyes. Don't lie to me right now. Something in his voice made her chest tighten. She swallowed. I was scared. His expression flickered. Anger, fear, something deeper. I know. Her knees suddenly weakened from adrenaline, and he steadied her instantly, gripping her arms firmly but carefully. You're safe now, he murmured, voice lower, almost trembling. For the first time since she'd known him, Min-Seo looked genuinely shaken. Min-Seo didn't remember crossing the street. One moment he was staring at her through the cafe window, the next he was inside, the bell over the door chiming as if announcing his unraveling. Hana's laughter faded the moment she saw him. Min-Seo never showed emotion. Never, but something sharp flickered across his face, something even she couldn't name. The stranger followed her gaze and looked at Min-Seo, clearly realizing he had walked into something he didn't understand. You okay? The man asked Hana, confused. She nodded, but her throat instinctively tightened. She knew that look in Min-Seo's eyes. Something had shifted. Something dangerous. She rose from the table slowly. Min-Seo, what are you doing here? Her voice was careful, soft. Min-Seo didn't look at her at first. His gaze slid to the stranger's hand, still resting on the table, too close to her. Too familiar. Something dark pulsed in Min-Seo's chest. We're leaving, he said quietly, but that quietness was deceptive. It was the quiet that comes before storms and broken bones. The stranger straightened. Hey man, she's not a... He didn't finish. Min-Seo's eyes snapped to him. Cold, lethal, the kind of gaze that made grown men reconsider life choices. Stand, Min-Seo ordered. It wasn't loud. But it wasn't a request. The man blinked. I don't even know you. But I know him, Hana whispered, stepping between them before Min-Seo detonated. She put her hand on his arm, light, trembling, and that small touch restrained the storm inside him. He's just a classmate. We were studying. Min-Seo's jaw clenched hard enough that a muscle jumped. Studying, he repeated, as though the word itself offended him. She nodded. Yes. He looked back and forth between them, his expression unreadable but his breathing just a little too controlled. That was always the giveaway with Min-Seo. When he felt too much, he forced himself into stillness. We're leaving, he said again. But Hana didn't move. Say goodbye nicely, she said, quietly but firmly. It wasn't a challenge, but it was a boundary, one nobody in his entire life had dared place on him. For a second, Min-Seo didn't breathe. Then, slowly, he turned to the stranger. Goodbye, he said flatly. The man swallowed. Goodbye. Hana sighed, relieved it didn't escalate into a headline. She grabbed her bag and followed Min-Seo out into the street. The cold air felt like a slap. They walked silently until they reached the alley where his car was parked. Only then did Hana speak. You scared him. Good. Min-Seo. I didn't touch him, he snapped, sharper than intended. That's progress, isn't it? She stared at him. He didn't meet her eyes. He kept looking straight ahead, the tension in his shoulders a clear sign of how tightly he was holding himself together. Why did you come? She asked softly. Because I needed to see you. His voice cracked at the end. Barely. But enough. Hana froze. That wasn't Min-Seo's voice, the ruthless Mafia heir whose silence could kill. This was something rawer, more human, more frightening. She stepped closer. What's wrong? Nothing, he said too quickly. Everything, she countered. Something inside him broke at that. He turned to her then, and she saw it clearly. The jealousy, the fear, the confusion, the storm he didn't know how to name. When I saw you laughing, he swallowed hard. With him. His voice faded, trembling with something he was trying desperately to suppress. I didn't know what was happening to me. Hana felt her breath hitch. This was vulnerability he had never shown anyone. Min-Seo, he's just a friend. I'm not used to seeing you with someone else, he admitted, voice low, clenched. Not like that. Like what? Happy. The word gutted her. She reached for his hand without thinking, and his fingers curled instantly around hers, as if he had been waiting for it, needing it. I'm happy with you too, she whispered. He stared at her for a long moment, searching her face, looking for something, reassurance, truth, a reason not to spiral. Then why does it feel like I'm losing you? The crack in his voice nearly broke her in half. She stepped closer until she was inches from him. You're not losing me. He let out a shaky breath. But I felt it. She squeezed his hand. You felt jealous. The word hit him like a punch. He blinked, startled. Jealous. Yes. Of him. She nodded. Why? Because you... She paused. This was the moment everything could change, if she said the truth out loud. Because you like me, Min-Seo. His breath caught. She could see the denial forming, the deflection, the instinct to retreat into coldness, but no words came out. Because it was true. It was too true. He stepped closer, shadows shifting across his face. If I like you... His voice dipped low, almost a warning. Then I don't know how to stop. Her heart pounded. I didn't ask you to stop. His eyes darkened, but not with anger, with something deeper, something terrifying because of how real it was. He raised his hand slowly, brushing his fingers against her cheek like she was something fragile. Something precious. Hana. Her name in his voice felt like a confession. She didn't pull away. And that was all he needed. His forehead lowered to hers, breath mingling. Not a kiss. Not yet. But something just as intimate. If you belong to someone else, he whispered, his voice trembling with a fear he would never admit, I don't know what I would do. I don't belong to anyone, she breathed. But if I did, her eyes lifted to meet his. It would be you. His breath stuttered. Then he pulled back just enough to look at her fully, something fierce and vulnerable battling in his eyes. Before he could speak, a sudden noise echoed from the street, tires screeching, a door slamming, rough voices shouting. Min-Seo's head snapped up instantly. His entire demeanor shifted. The softness vanished. The Mafia air surfaced. Get behind me, he ordered. Now. Hana's blood ran cold. Because those voices weren't random. They were calling his name. And they didn't sound friendly. Min-Seo's hands were tight on Hana's shoulders as they ducked into his black sedan, the engine roaring to life before anyone could follow. His eyes scanned every shadow along the street, every alleyway that could hide another threat. Hana gripped the edge of the seat, still trembling, her breath shaky from fear and adrenaline. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. He could feel her fear as clearly as if it were his own. The car drove in silence, the city lights blurring past like streaks of gold and red. Min-Seo's jaw was clenched so tightly she thought it might fracture. Every nerve in his body screamed for her to be safe, for nothing to touch her again. And yet, beneath the adrenaline and fury, another emotion simmered quietly. Possessiveness. Desire. A desperate need to make sure she never laughed like that for anyone else. When they arrived at the penthouse, Min-Seo didn't even wait for the elevator. He ushered Hana inside, shutting the door firmly behind them as if locking out the world. Only then did he let out a controlled breath, though his shoulders were still tense. Hana finally let her hands drop from her bag, and she turned to look at him. Why did you come? She whispered. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and something else, something tender, flashing in his gaze. Because someone tried to hurt you, he said simply. And because I couldn't let it happen. Not to you. Hana's heart thudded in her chest. I didn't ask for that. You never do, he said, voice rough. But that doesn't matter. He moved closer, and she instinctively stepped back. Hana, he said, his tone softer now. Look at me. Her eyes met his, and she saw the storm inside him. Anger, fear, jealousy, something dangerous and raw. I can't control it, he admitted, almost to himself. What? She asked, voice trembling. This, he said, gesturing between them. The way I feel when I see you with someone else. The way I feel when you're in danger. The way I feel when you laugh and it's not at me. I can't. I don't know how to stop it. Hana swallowed. Her chest was tight. Min-Seo, he interrupted her softly. Don't speak. Just feel it with me. She nodded, understanding that words weren't necessary right now. His hand lifted slowly, hovering near her cheek, hesitant. Then, as if the slightest contact could shatter him, he brushed a fingertip against her skin. Hana shivered, leaning slightly into the touch. His eyes softened as he studied her face, memorizing every feature, every expression. You're dangerous, he whispered. Hana. What? Because you make me feel things I'm not supposed to. She blinked. Like what? Like wanting to protect you. Like wanting to hold you. Like... He swallowed hard. Like I need you. Her lips parted slightly. And do you? He asked, voice low, almost a whisper. Yes, she admitted softly. His breath hitched. For a moment, time seemed suspended, the world outside the penthouse completely irrelevant. Then he stepped closer, brushing her hand with his, entwining fingers gently. Stay here tonight, he murmured. It's safer. She nodded. Okay. Not just because of safety, he added, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his eyes. She felt her chest tighten. Then I'll stay. He exhaled, a small, almost imperceptible sigh of relief. Good. Their eyes locked, and a fragile, trembling closeness formed between them. He lowered his head slowly, just enough that their foreheads almost touched. Hana. His voice was raw, unguarded. I can't promise I'll control this. I can't promise I won't. He broke off, shaking slightly. Feel too much. Want too much. Protect too much. Hana's hand lifted to his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing. Then don't promise, she whispered. I don't need you to. He stared at her, the tension in his body easing slightly. Do you understand? She asked. Yes, he admitted, voice low. I understand that I can't stay away. That I don't want to. Hana's lips curved into a soft smile. Then stay. He exhaled slowly, moving closer until he could finally hold her, a careful, reverent embrace. Her head rested against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Slowly, the world outside the penthouse disappeared. The city noises, the danger, the strangers, the bullets, all of it faded into nothing. Only Hana and Min-Seo remained. He whispered her name softly, almost as if testing the sound. Hana. Yes, she replied, voice barely audible. I don't want anyone else to hear it. Only me. She laughed softly, the sound warm and fragile. He smiled faintly, leaning his forehead against hers. Then you'll have to let me hear it often, he murmured. She tightened her arms around him. I will. For hours, they stayed there, talking in soft whispers, sharing moments that were both terrifying and tender. Min-Seo's hand never left hers. He kept her close, protective, jealous, and utterly captivated. Hana finally understood the depth of his feelings, and in that understanding, she felt safe, wanted, and alive. When the night grew late, she rested fully against him, and he held her like he could never let go. The emotions he had tried to suppress for so long, jealousy, fear, desire, protectiveness, melded into one overwhelming truth. He could no longer deny that Hana was his. Not in ownership, not in possession, but in heart. She was his. And he was hers. The first rays of dawn crept through the windows, casting soft light over their faces. Min-Seo tightened his grip slightly, murmuring her name once more. Hana smiled sleepily. "Good morning," she whispered. "Morning," he replied, voice low and rough. "I'll keep you safe." "Always," he said, almost as a vow. Hana pressed closer. "And I'll stay. Always." For the first time, neither of them tried to deny what they felt. Neither of them stepped back. And for the first time, in a long time, everything felt right. If you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment so you never miss the next one.